Hey everyone, welcome to the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston Subdivision in HO scale. My name is Daryl Kruse, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for episode 41 of season, 2022. This episode features something that's never been done before on these updates, and that is a complete run from one end of the layout to the other. And we're going to take a look at that and see how things operate going from one end to the other. It's so nice not having to worry about turning trains around. This is usually the spot where we couldn't go across here. This was the last part of the layout built. And so nice not having to turn trains around and go back to where they came. Now you may notice my voice sounds a little different. I have had a cold the last few days, and I think I'm getting over it, but my voice is still pretty bad. One thing that I've been able to do with the main line done all the way around is reorganize the staging yards. So the staging yard is on part of the layout that is left-hand running. So we're looking at the east staging yard, and tracks are numbered 1 through 12 from right to left at this point. And so the westbound trains here at the east staging yard are staged in track 1 through 6. So you can see in track 1, there's a manifest train. Track 2, there's a ethanol train. Track 3, there's a coal train. Track 4 and 5 are both manifest trains, and track 6 is a stack train. All right, now here we are on the west staging yard, the west end of the staging yard, and these are all eastbound trains. And again, now from this vantage point, tracks are numbered 1 through 12 from left to right. So in this case, all the trains ready to depart eastbound are in track 7 through 12. So in track 7, we have a stack train there headed up by the Heritage Unit. Track 8 is a coal train. Track 9 is an ethanol train. Track 10 is a manifest train. Track 11 is an Autorax train, and track 12 is a local train. The other end of the staging yard also had a local, I think I called it a manifest. So instead of the trains kind of being all over the place, they're kind of in their spots now for operating sessions. And I have scheduled an operating session coming up in December. And so we're going to go ahead and see what a run is like going from one end of the layout to the other end. And I decided that we're going to start at the east staging yard. And from the east staging yard, that's on the east end of the layout, the trains are departing westbound. I hope that makes sense. So this is represents Green River, which is the easternmost part of the subdivision. And these are trains in track 1 through 6 that are staged to go westbound on the Evanston Sub. So we're going to follow a local train. This train is headed up by an SD70 and a couple of SD40Ns. So from the east staging yard, the trains head, first of all, right into the helix. So if you're decided to kind of get your train from the inside of the layout there, you would have that kind of vantage point. Now this is actually a vantage point you probably wouldn't have. This is where the dispatcher will be located. So in most cases, if you're running trains, you probably won't get inside here too much. Not really a whole lot of room. You could get in if you needed to put something back on the track or couple something up. But for the most part, things run pretty well, and so you'll be on the outside of the track. Now I'm going to go ahead and let it run all the way through the helix here. And normally I don't do that because it's kind of a long stretch of just going in circles. But I've cranked it up to 30, which is usually 30 scale miles per hour. which I normally don't do. Usually we go around at 20, but I set it to 30. Now, still probably not going 30 since it's uphill. Definitely goes slower uphill than it does downhill. So it's set at 30, and we're probably going closer to maybe a little bit less than 20 miles per hour. But as you can see, we're already almost halfway up the helix. Now, this is standing outside of the helix, so you're inside of the layout where the east staging yard and the helix and the dispatcher's location is. And so if you choose, you can access your trains here and then kind of man them and monitor them as they go up the helix. Things have been operating much better. I've been spending a lot of times just running trains and making corrections and adjustments as we go along. I have been having some uncoupler issues, and a lot of people have been saying just switch everything over to KDs, which I might do eventually, but I decided I'm not going to just simply wholesale change everything. I never did that on the N-scale layouts that I had. I usually just attacked the ones that did not operate very well, so I would replace the ones that were giving me trouble, and I think that's kind of what I'm going to be doing right now. I'm going to run the heck out of all these trains and just keep running trains, and if there's ever an uncoupling, that's the car I'm going to change couplers on until we get kind of to the point where we have everything running effectively. So I think a lot of the cheaper couplers, the plastic ones and so forth, they probably have a pretty high failure rate, but it's not going to be 100% where 100% of them will fail. It's probably more like, maybe 20% of them will fail. So if I just change out the ones that fail, eventually we'll get rid of the 20% and we'll have everything working correctly. Have not had any problems with uncouplings due to height mismatch. I have that pretty well solved, and most of them are pretty much at the same level. And as far as the helix go, I have way more trouble with uncouplings going down the helix. I don't have any trouble anymore going up the helix. It's just going down. It's the slack action that causes a lot of the uncoupling, where the knuckle doesn't close as it's going from slack to pull. All right, anyway, enough about couplers. All right, so here's where we come out of the helix onto the main line. So we're entering the modeled portion of the Evanston Sub, starting on the very easternmost part of the layout, kind of like the middle of Wyoming. And a lot of this first part of the sub is pretty flat and pretty barren. Not a whole lot out here. Not a lot of trees or population or anything. Just a lot of grasslands with shrubs and small vegetation as we see a coal train on the lower level. The lower level here is Evanston. That coal train that's going through Evanston right now, we'll see that eventually here coming up. Anyway, if you travel along the Evanston Sub from Green River westward, the first part of it is pretty fairly flat. There are some grades, obviously, and some curves, but a lot of the scenery and so forth is out in the distance, which you can see represented on the backdrops here. These are some pretty cool die-cast masters, Caterpillar construction equipment on scale trains, flat cars. And then we have some scale trains, covered hoppers here. Down below you can see the coal train with some Rapido auto flood hoppers and Also some bathtub gondolas by Athearn. All right, so we're at the upper level, heading westbound. As you can see, we do have a green light here, so we're going to go ahead and proceed. I am slowing it down here so I can make the journey over to the other end of the layout. We'll watch the coal train as we go by. All right, on the lower level, you can see another train we're going to come across eventually. All right, now we're at the other level, so we'll go ahead and crank it back up to 20. I always use a percentage on my throttles, not speed steps. So this is 20%, which is like maybe 28, speed step 28. So now it's coming through west of Vaco, which is a Trona plant. I have been working on the different types of trains that will be running during operating sessions. There's a really cool website. Here's a picture of the document that you can access. It's on a wiki page, and it basically lists all the train names of the Union Pacific and where they originate and where they end up at. And even in some cases have where they stop along the way. So I've been pouring through that and picking some of them that would be the trains that would run through the Evanston Sub. I was trying to get the same number of trains as I had on the N-scale Geneva Sub, but then it dawned on me that I don't think we're going to be able to have as many trains since it's much longer layout. The scale length is about 10 scale miles, which is longer in scale length that I had on the Geneva Sub. So it's just going to take longer for each train. So I don't think I'm going to be able to have as many trains. We ran about 22 trains a day on the Geneva Sub. I think it may be closer to like 16 to 18. At the first operating session we're going to hopefully get an idea of how that's going to work. All right, so from West Vaco now, we're still heading westbound. We go through the town of Granger. Now we're not doing any stops along the way. This is assuming that you're operating a train that has clear greens all the way across the layout. Here we get a little bit better, closer look at the end of the train. Those are some Athearn tank cars. Those are derailment wise, those are something I have to, those derail quite a bit if they're being shoved into a staging yard. They're very light, so I'm going to have to figure something out about that. The gondolas are, I think, are Walther's mainline. All right, let's get back to the head end of the train. So we're through Granger, and now you see a third track here. That's going to be the Pocatello Sub, which comes onto the UP mainline at Granger. So that actually is going to be behind a backdrop. So I'm going to install a backdrop between the two-track mainline of the UP of the Evanston Sub, and then there'll be a backdrop. Then you won't be able to see the third track until it comes onto the layout at Granger. And I'm going to do some work on this window too, by the way. You can see there's still some exposed metal of the metal frame. I'm going to need to seal that off so we don't have condensation issues before it gets too cold. You definitely got to get those footprints off that backdrop. I got to make sure I do that this week. All right, here we meet that coal train that was on the lower level at Evanston. It's heading eastbound, and we are going westbound. This is the last part of the main line that was added to complete everything here. You can see some of the HO scale guys trying to figure out what to do with the electric panel. Looks like they're kind of frustrated. And now we come upon the Aspen control point. Again, we have a green, it looks like. As you notice for the coal train, I actually ended up with a midpoint DPU and a end of train DPU. That seems to handle the cars the best. And I haven't had any derailments. I've glued about 4 different couplers. Didn't glue them to each other. I just glued the knuckles shut. And that seems to have solved any uncoupling problems that I've been having. All right, from the Aspen control point, we come to the Aspen tunnels. Below here is the Morgan on the lower level. At this point, we come to the end of the upper level. And as we go into the furnace room here, we make a transition from the upper level to the lower level. As the Evanston Sub gets closer to Evanston, it does get to be more mountainous, so there's going to be a little bit more serious mountain scenery on the backdrops as we get close to the Aspen tunnels. All right, then from the furnace room, then we come into Evanston. And once again, we have a green signal, so we can continue. Pretty much all the signals have been installed. And I'm going to add one more pair of signals just as you go into the staging yard or into the helix from the upper level. So from the upper level into the staging yard, I'm going to have a couple of signals that the dispatcher can use to control who comes into the helix. This will be Evanston as you see the coal train go into the helix. There will be a 7-track yard here with a car shops and a engine maintenance facility. There will be locals that will terminate and originate from Evanston, and there might be a couple of through manifest trains that will stop here and then swap out cars. I was surprised when I looked at the list of all the trains on Union Pacific, how many of the manifest trains had originations and destinations, and then they also had notes about 2 or 3 different places that they worked along the way. So I think we're going to replicate that a little bit. So We'll probably have the locals originate and terminate at the yard, and then have some manifests just stop and swap out cars and then continue on. Here we meet another train. This is a manifest train, also heading through Evanston. I've not been blowing the horn too much, but I did decide to do this here at this couple of road crossings here. Looks cool seeing the engines through the center beam flat cars. This is going to be a UTLX repair facility. I have this train set to be a local, so it normally would not run straight through. But we're just doing it for demonstration's sake right now as we head into the Wasatch control point and begin our descent down the Wasatch grade. Between Emory and Wasatch, the grades of the two main lines separate and have different elevations at varying points along the way. Our train is on the original main line, which has sharper curves and steeper grades. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and switch over to dynamic brakes as we approach the steepest grade on the Evanston Sub, a 1.7% grade heading down to Emory. I'm looking forward to getting back to doing some scenery. That point right there where the two main lines cross is called Curvo, and that's probably the next part of the scenery that I'm going to do. I'll do Curvo there and then basically the whole peninsula. So we have this bit of scenery done here on this side of the peninsula. We'll probably do the end Curvo and then the end of the peninsula and then the other side of the peninsula all the way up past Wasatch. Then we'll switch over to doing the upper level and then finally the lower level. You can definitely hear the dynamic brakes being engaged. Right now we're at the Emery control point. And we'll go ahead and here in a little bit go off of the dynamic brakes. This is going to be Echo, and this little curve in through here will be the Echo Canyon. And then we will come by the Wholesome Cement complex here. Here you can see the manifest train we went by a bit ago. This is the Devil Slide control point. I may put some foam board under the upper level to kind of hide the bare wood there. It's not something you see when you're operating. It's only seen in photographs and videotaping. And then Double Slide itself would be to the right there, also Interstate 84. And then this is the Taggart tunnels. You can see the prototype scene in the corner here as we go through what's the modeled scene right now. So we'll have a couple of real nice bridges there, and then some tunnels here for the Taggart tunnels, and then the Weber River that goes through here. I really think I have the upper level set so that it's not going to distract at all from the pretty striking scenic elements that we're going to have in the Taggart and Double Slide area. All right, we're heading on to the home stretch here, heading towards Morgan and then eventually the West Staging Yard, which represents Ogden and Salt Lake City. I did do all the wiring left to do on the both Aspen and Granger control points. So I'll probably be putting a backdrop here on for the lower level. So a lot of the bracing and so forth will be hidden. I think I will probably add some more bracing. There's a couple spots that could use additional bracing, like right there. So this will be Morgan here. Probably the biggest city that will be modeled. And we head into the control point here, Morgan control point, and then into the staging yard. Now we started on track 4 on the east side, and we're going to go ahead and head back into track 4. So for the most part, the trains will pretty much own their staging track. So when they come out of one staging track, that staging track will be there for them to go back into. That way the length of the trains can be set to match the length of the staging track. I have to say I've been very happy with the way everything's been operating. Have had very few derailments. These fast track turnouts have just operated superbly, and been very happy with that. And I'm getting a handle on the coupler issues. We're slowly getting that eliminated. So I'm looking forward to having the first operating session in December. I already have 12 people signed up for it. It took about 45 minutes for it to get filled up. But thanks so much for watching. About a half hour to go the complete run as we complete this run and go back into the staging yard. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe and like and all those good things. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.